At InitiativeOne, we're igniting a leadership revolution by helping organizations eliminate the drama, improve decision-making, and win as a team. Join Dr. Fred Johnson on the Leadership Initiative podcast as we uncover insights to maximize your impact and transform your life.
Welcome back to the Leadership Initiative podcast. I'm Tony Reale, joined with Dr. Fred Johnson.
Hi, buddy.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to today. I always love these impromptu podcasts that you set up for me.
It's so fun. All the guests that we have on the show, I mean, it's a privilege for me. I get to shake hands with some really amazing people, both from the Green Bay area and around the country. But I also really love when we get a chance to sit down and pick your brain, because the think tanks are amazing. If you aren't currently coming to our think tanks, either physically in person or digitally online, I highly recommend it. Go to InitiativeOne.com. Every month we have a new think tank. Dr. Fred pours in so much energy into it, and they're such a great time to learn new things and to be a part of a community that values this leadership training. So definitely check it out. But then I love having these one-on-ones because these get to be a little bit more conversational. You put in, like I said, so much effort into the big think tanks, but sometimes like having these relatable conversations where people can really, I get to poke you. I get to, you go on a subject and I can really pull some more out of it.
Well, poke away.
All right. So I want to talk about confidence in leadership. I had a friend years ago who we kind of butted heads in this perspective because they were a person that didn't have a lot of confidence in themselves. And as a young entrepreneur, I was constantly trying to exude, confidence, like that kind of that learn a new thing, get good at that thing, then now feel confident because I've actually know what the heck I'm talking about a little bit. And that other person didn't gel with that, and they started to look at confidence as arrogance. And I think some leaders struggle with that spectrum because it's like, I don't want to look arrogant, I don't want to come across as arrogant, but nobody wants to work with somebody that is not confident in who they are and what they do. And you talk about there's like a spectrum of what most people look at as their own self-confidence, and it's pretty low on a regular basis.
Well, we talk about one of our basic things that we hit over and over again is that our research over 25 years of doing this, and we've done so much testing on it, the average person from a scale of 0 to 10 has a self-belief level of 2.7. What we know is we've observed the behaviors and the self-belief levels of highly effective leaders. And we have found that those leaders typically have a self-belief level of 7 to 8 on a scale of 0 to 10. At 2.7, my internal message system is, I'm not enough. At 8.0, my internal message system is, I am enough. At 2.7, I am what we call a performance-based leader. And what that means is my sense of value, my validation, my self-worth, my sense of meaning, because I don't think I'm enough, I have to find that sense of meaning from somewhere. That's the work of Abraham Maslow. He talked about every one of us have a need for self-actualization, which means the need to look at ourselves in the mirror at the end of the day and say, my life matters. And so we all have that need. Now, if I don't believe I'm enough, I'm going to look to have that need met some way. And a performance-based leader will find that need met by, what do you think of me? And if you think highly of me, I can think highly of me. If you think poorly of me, I'm going to think poorly of myself. So a 2.7 leader basically gives all of his or her power away, or tries to. And the people who have power in my life is everyone else. And basically, the judgments of other people are what determines how I judge myself. That is a really toxic way to live your life.
Well, how do you measure then the idea of like the other end of the spectrum of like, I don't care what people think of me, and no matter what people, they can think whatever they want. I don't care. Where does that balance?
Well,
lie?
actually, that's nonsense. Because you show me someone who says, I don't care about what people think. Actually, they're saying the opposite. They really do care about what someone else thinks to an unhealthy level. I do, as a leader, I do care about what people think, because if they don't care about me, it means that I don't have the ability to influence people. People that care about me care about what I think. And so to say I don't care about what people think, they're really saying that I don't care about my ability to have influence on other people. And so that really is a nonsensical statement.
So for developing that confidence, what is the difference between self-belief and confidence? Or, are they the same thing? Is there differences there?
Well, self-confidence is a portion of the whole idea of self-belief. Confidence it's more narrow. Being confident is something that I'm gonna be confident right now. It's raw. It's more shallow. It's something that is in the moment that you will yourself to have. Self-belief is something far deeper. It is a sense of self. It is a deep sense of what I bring to the table matters. It is a result of deep self-reflection and coming to deep conclusions about yourself, that you value yourself no matter what. No matter how good you're doing in something, that doesn't affect my value. No matter how bad I am doing in something, that doesn't affect my value. Those are action issues. My value, my sense of self-belief, comes from what I call declaration. I choose to believe the truth about myself that is undefeatable. And that truth is that I matter no matter what. That is what I call living by declaration. Living by desperation is I'm desperate to believe in myself. And to do that, I have to prove myself to myself. And I do that by proving myself to others. If they feel that they approve of me, then I can approve of myself. So self-belief is the result of deep work and making a choice that I choose to believe in myself no matter what. Every one of us make that choice. We either choose to believe in ourselves or we choose to believe that we're not enough. They're both the result of a choice that we make.
So in that whole perspective, where does fake it till you make it fall into there?
Fake it till you make it is not authentic. Fake it till you make it is being a fake. We know that the vast majority of today's population, well over 70%, expects, if I'm going to trust you, I expect you to be authentic with me. I expect you to be transparent with me. I expect you to be vulnerable with me. I expect you to be real with me. And that fake it till you make it is old school. Those were the days that you were taught that your image and your performance is critical in leadership. We don't believe that. We believe that being real, being, again, authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability are the three pillars of leadership today. That may have worked in the 1960s and the 1970s, but today it is seen as shallow. It's seen as you really are insecure, and you're not secure enough to say, I'm having a tough day, or I'm struggling with some things right now. So someone who is fake it till you make it, they're going to have a hard time connecting with people because people can see right through that. So I strongly suggest that a person grow out of that advice as how you become an effective leader, because it's not effective in today's world.
All right, so we wanted to get past that 2.7 self-belief. You know, if I'm looking to lose weight, I'm going to diet and exercise. What are exercises or what are things that I can do to build up my own self-belief then?
That is a great question. First of all, people will ask, can you change your self-belief? The buzzword today is imposter syndrome. People think that imposter syndrome is a permanent state of mind. It's not. None of us were born coming out of the womb saying, I'm not enough. I'm a 2.7. Somewhere along the line, we bought someone's words that we were not enough. And we made a decision to accept someone else's words as truth. And it takes as much effort to believe that you are a 2.7 as it does to believe that you're an 8. And so we tell people the same way that you became a 2.7, you reverse engineer that. It was other people's talk that convinced us that we were not enough. So we tell people that your self-talk is the way out of this being trapped into 2.7 thinking. So it took its old muscle memory of listening to all the people who say, you'll never be enough, you'll never accomplish this, you'll never amount to anything, you'll never be like so-and-so. So the way out of that is to change our self-talk, that I do matter, that if I make a mistake, I'm not a mistake. It just is an opportunity to learn and to improve, and that no one can disrespect me but me. Those are all examples of healthy self-talk, that I am enough, that if I fail in something, it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. Just an opportunity for accelerated learning and development. So your healthy self-talk, day in and day out, is the key to gradually putting on new muscle memory from I am not enough to I am enough. One of the exercises that we give our clients is we ask them to take a sticky pad, and we ask them to write on that little sticky note these words: I am enough. I am no 2.7. And we ask them to stick it somewhere in their car and leave it there for 3 weeks, and they can't take it down. And if someone gets in the car, and if they say, well, what's that about? You can't go, well, it's some leadership thing I'm doing. You have to tell them, well, I am working on my whole sense of self-belief right now. And this is an exercise that I am doing to remind myself that I am enough. Well, what you're doing every time you explain that to someone, you are counteracting one of those moments where someone came along and put you down. It is a way of, during neurotraining, it is retraining the brain, rewiring the brain on how to think about ourselves. And the reason why we do it for 3 weeks is you're having these conversations with yourself for 3 weeks. And at first it feels weird. We're so used to accepting the truth that we're not enough, that when we start seeing information that we are enough, it feels so uncomfortable. Have you ever been around someone who can't take a compliment? The reason why they can't take a compliment, that's like me saying, Tony, you're an 8. Oh, don't tell me I'm an 8. Everybody else has always told me I'm a 2.7. Just tell me I'm a 2.7 because I've learned how to live with that. So, so that exercise of looking and visualizing every single day, multiple times a day, that I'm not a 2.7. I'm enough. That is over time, it begins to give you real self-belief. It allows you to begin to develop the confidence and the courage to do hard things at 8.0 that a 2.7 won't do.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about with those neural pathways, because it reminds me of a story. You know, my wife and I bought some land in Swamico, and it's this acre and a half. It's on the river. It's really pretty and very rural. And you know, our goal is to build a house someday. And I go out there, you know, several times throughout the summer, and we'll do river floats and stuff. And every time I go out there, I see these paths in the woods from like deer and other wildlife that make their trails. And you know, you see that path continue to get wider and wider and deeper and more established because once that path is started, they continue to take that path. And I think what you're talking about with those 2.7 beliefs, a lot of people, that's how their brains work, is that they've made these connections in their brain of that self-doubt and the disbelief in themselves. And when they try to rewire and they try to come up with this new perspective, it's difficult. You're basically making a new path through the woods that nobody has traveled through before. And you're like, well, this path is easy. I could just go this route. And that's what your brain wants to do.
Absolutely. That brings up something else. Part of changing your self-belief to the truth that I am enough also requires me to surround myself with people in my life who not only have self-belief in themselves, but they believe in you. And to ask them to hold you accountable, that when they see you falling into that 2.7 thinking, that 2.7 self, that place where you're putting yourself down, that place where you're constantly criticizing yourself and setting such a low ceiling for yourself, I have found that you have to have those critical people in your life that will say, "Time out, Fred. What is that about?" There's some tools that some of those people in my life have given me. I have one person who asks me this all the time. Well, Fred, where's the proof? Tell me, where's the proof that you're not enough? Tell me, where's the proof that you can't succeed? Have you suddenly gotten stupid? Have your communication skills gone to down the toilet? Are suddenly your ability to think as clearly as you think, has that gone by the wayside? Tell me, where's the proof? When you ask those kinds of questions, you can't find the proof. And so another one is, if you weren't afraid, what would you do? If you weren't afraid, because when you ask that question, that gets you out of that fear state and it gets you into the possibility state. The fear state is where our 2.7 self thrives. The 8.0 is where our possibility state thrives. So those are some simple questions that I'm constantly asking myself when that self-doubt, because listen, that 2.7 self will always stay with us. The question is are we going to manage it, or is it going to manage me? I still have those 2.7 moments. It's okay to have 2.7 moments. It's not okay to have 2.7 months. And in those 2.7 moments, you recognize when you're there. That's when you can get into the habit of going, time out, I'm going to confront this. That is simply not true. That is not the truth, that I am enough, and my little self is not going to get in the way of this. So I will tell you, I am constantly talking to myself. People who are self-aware are constantly talking to themselves. When they get into that 2.7 self, by the way, that's where most of our mistakes are made. That's where we are at our worst. That is where we are not in our best version of ourselves. That's where most of our conflicts come. That's where our self-sabotage comes. So just getting out of 2.7 and moving towards an 8, we find that once a person moves into that 7 or 8 state of self-belief, their behaviors change. They start having those hard conversations that they wouldn't have had before. They are able to receive the tough information that they would have been defensive before, and now they evaluate and not go into shame. 2.7 goes into shame. 8.0 says, well, that I'm going to stay curious about that. I'm going to reflect upon that, and you're not uncomfortable. It's just information. 2.7 says it's about my mama. You're making this personal. 8.0 says, thanks for that information. I want to soak on that for a while. 2.7 takes it personally. 8.0 steps away and can look at it at a distance and kind of detach and just reflect upon it. At 8.0, my behaviors change. And when my behaviors change, my outcomes change. This is a big deal. People. I recently had a publicist in New York who did, unbeknownst to me, he went through all of these. He went through dozens of think tanks that I had done over the years, and he said, "Fred, you are really known around the country for 3 things." It was fascinating to hear this. He said, number one, you are known as an expert in understanding how leadership has changed radically in today's culture, why it has changed, how it's changed, the impact of leadership today because of that. He said, you're also known for understanding that the nature of self-belief and how critical that is in any kind of relationship excellence and leadership excellence. He said the third thing that you're known for is understanding how toxicity can play a huge damaging role in teams and in our lives individually. I found that really fascinating. And so leadership has changed.
It has, yeah. It's, we think of like if you're stuck in the way of communication the way it was 50 years ago, making phone calls and delivering snail mail and you didn't adapt and start incorporating, more instant forms of communication, you would not be thriving as a business or as a leader. And yet, to your point, there's a lot of people that are stuck in ways that the way leadership or certain expectations from leaders was, a century ago. And it changes. It constantly changes. And what people expect out of their leaders and out of their job, I think has changed. A lot of people today look for self-satisfaction and purpose from their job. And, and they'll look at social media and they'll see people that are maybe influencers or showing off the best version of themselves and saying that they must love their job. They get to do really cool things. Look at their family life is amazing, or they're going on these great trips. And they're surrounding themselves with somewhat of a negative perspective, or that they're seeing something that's positive out there, that maybe somebody's having a great day or had a fun trip, and they're pulling it into that self-doubt, and then that 2.7 keeps getting more and more ingrained into their head.
Man, look at them. They've got their life together and I don't. So I really am a nobody. I really am a fraud. Actually, we know that nobody has their stuff together. There's not a person that is watching this that doesn't have messiness in their lives. There's not a single person. To anyone who would suggest that they have it all together, those are the people that I always have the greatest level of suspicion about. As a former counselor and therapist many years ago, the people that always scared me the most were people that I could spend 2 or 3 sessions with. And after 2 or 3 sessions, you still didn't get any kind of sense of who they were because it was all an act. That everything was so polished in their lives. Life is not polished. What I found was the people that I could trust were the people who were real, because I can't relate to someone who has their act together because I have so many screw ups in my life. We all have screw ups. And so I'm not going to trust someone if they're doing an act with me. The people that I trust are the people who are going to be real enough to say, man, I'm struggling. I've got some messy areas. I'll never forget when I was, for instance, last year when I was working with the Dolphins. I would meet with the team leaders every week. And it took me about 3 or 4 weeks into the season for those players to really start to let their guards down and start being real with me and then with each other. And the turning point came when I shared with them that there were times that I showed up down in Miami and I felt completely out of place. And I would say, what in the world am I doing here? I don't know anything about football. I don't know the kinds of challenges that these guys are facing on the field. When I would say that, the risk of that is that they would go, well, why are you here? Well, actually, it was the opposite. They're surrounded by all kinds of people that all they know is football. And it was a breath of fresh air for them to be around someone who was an authority figure who was saying, I don't have all the answers. I question whether I even belong here. Well, those same players were going, I question if I belong here. And so when I got real with them, that's when the trust began to go like this. And that's when they began to ask me deep questions. And then they started coming up to me after meetings and after practice and before practice. And they started asking me about personal issues in their lives that they weren't sharing with anybody else, because the NFL is not a vulnerable environment. But they were craving that place where they could go to. As a leader, people are searching for those safe places that they can go and they can be themselves without judgment. That's leadership. And I found just being real about that, my ability to gain trust and then my ability to influence them because they trusted me went sky high. That's how leadership works. It doesn't work without being real.
I've heard Elon Musk talks about the challenges of being a CEO is that you get all the worst problems thrown at you. And I think sometimes in the realm of leader, whether you're a CEO or just, in charge of a team or just, a little bit older than somebody else in a company, sometimes you get kind of the worst things thrown at you and the problems that you have to solve. And you might not have the answer. You might not have the solution right away. And you might feel like, okay, well, my job is to solve this problem. I don't know how to solve this problem. I'm not good at my job. And I think what you're talking about is building an environment of that's normal. Let's get past that self-belief and let's start getting to a point where you don't have to judge or your own self-belief based on how well you know the answer right away. Move past that and get to a point where you can start to discover those answers and feel comfortable to grow beyond that. So how do you create a safe environment for people to believe either in themselves or, again, allowing other people on their team to not jump into that self or disbelief right away?
Well, you create that environment by reminding over and over and over that none of us here have all the answers. The old school said, as a leader, you are expected to have all the answers. You are expected to be the solution giver. that's no longer true. Number one, knowledge has exploded exponentially every year for year after year. The level of knowledge in every field is so deep that no one can have knowledge about everything, even in their own field. I mean, if I were a hand specialist, there's a lifetime of knowledge now gained about how the pinky works that you could spend an entire career developing knowledge about how the pinky works. And so today, the role of the leader is completely different. The role of the leader is not to be the knowledge giver or the answer giver. It is to be the connector, to bring people around who are smarter than you in this area and smarter than you in this area and smarter than you in this area. And to say, I don't know the answer to this. What do you think? Well, as a young man, my father-in-law once said to me that when in his career, his greatest successes were when he first started, and he was a pastor of in a church that he was completely over his head. And he would go in and talk to these seasoned older men and women and just say, I don't know how to do this. I'm just going to be honest with you. I can't do this without your help, without your knowledge, without your advice. What he didn't realize is what he was saying to them was, I need you. I need you. I'm asking you to partner with me. And it raised trust. He said, as I got older and I got more knowledge and I could convey that, it was harder to gain people's trust because they didn't think I needed them. People respond to people who need us. It sends a message that I value you, for you bring things to the table that I don't have. That is one of the most powerful ways to lift other people up, and people will respond to people who value them. That's how I have seen leadership. I am far more, let me say this, let me interrupt myself. A 2.7 leader will never surround him or herself with people who they think are more skilled or smarter or more experienced than they are, because they are a threat. You're going to expose me. You're going to make me look silly. An 8.0 leader is thrilled to find someone. I hired someone that's wiser than me. I've got an entire team, and I am the least. I have less smarts than anybody on our team, and I am thrilled with that. That's 8.0 thinking.
That's amazing. I want to talk more about how to overcome that voice, that negative voice, that lie of that you're not enough. But we are out of time for today's episode, so we're going to make this a two-parter, and we're going to come back to that. But if you are not subscribed to the podcast already, you can view the video podcast, you can view the audio, listen to the audio podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to subscribe. Tune into our next episode because we got a lot more to talk about. And again, join us for our next think tank at InitiativeOne.com. Thank you so much. And hey, if you want more resources, InitiativeOne has a ton. So if you're a business, if you're a leader, or if you're not quite sure, am I a leader? And where do I fall into this line? Check out InitiativeOne's resources. There's something for every stage of leadership and every industry that you could possibly be in. So we want to help you become the best version of yourself that you can be.